You can't make a goal and not shift your identity along with it. Because if your goal doesn't align with the person you believe you are, you're not going to hit it. You have to believe you're that kind of person. When I went that decade of going up and down in my health, and then therefore my business, I didn't believe that better things were possible for me because I was always living up to the person I thought I was. In the back of my head, I always said, you don't have it anymore. But now I believe I have it. Down to my soul, I know that the best times are ahead of me. And because of that, I can do anything I want. Hi everyone, I'm Chris Rodack. Welcome to the Rising Father podcast. I'm talking today about your internal governor. If you've ever been on a golf cart, the golf cart has an internal mechanism called a governor that stops it from going fast. You can go 15, 20 miles an hour. And then this little internal mechanism kicks in and it slows the thing down. Every one of us has an internal governor. We have an internal mechanism that causes us to slow down in certain areas of our life as soon as we hit that threshold. That could be your fitness, it could be your marriage, your business, your parenting. We're going to dive in this episode into each of these areas and how you can identify that governor, then what to do to stop it. So if you've ever been in a golf cart, it'll go 15, 20 miles an hour, and then no matter how hard you push that pedal down, the golf cart doesn't go any faster. And I used to golf all the time back in the day before I knew exactly what I was doing with my business and I wanted to take up some time. I would golf 50 to 100 times a summer. There's a couple years where I did that. There's a short 9-hole course near our house. You can get done with the whole thing in like an hour, hour and a half. And I would golf all the time, me and my buddy. And then I said, well, I don't want my legacy to be that I was an okay 9-hole golfer. So I stopped playing so much golf and focused on building a legacy. So if you've ever been on a golf cart, that governor kicks in and it kind of ruins the fun. You want to go faster, and then it doesn't matter. You can't go any faster. The only way that golf cart can go faster is if you lift the seat up and dismantle the governor. You have to rip it out so that the golf cart doesn't have this regulation. The golf cart doesn't have this limit, and it stops limiting itself. I used to have a governor with my business, with my weight, with other areas of my life. You may have one too. I'm going to tell you stories of when I had to rip out the governor and how it showed itself in my life. I've told you my story many times about how before I got married, I got ripped with P90X and I was shredded. My identity at that time was Chris is shredded. Chris is disciplined. I got up early in the morning. I would do an hour to an hour and a half of the P90X workout. Then I would go teach. Then I'd come home, jog 6-7 miles. I would take little prepped containers of food to school every single day. And I thought anything was possible. I had very little governor there. I thought I could do anything. I just believed I was a disciplined person. My identity was that, Chris, you are a disciplined person. So that's what I believed about myself. I thought I was disciplined and consistent. I thought I was ripped and a savage. I thought I was a badass. So every day, the actions I took and the thoughts I thought and the words I spoke all backed up that identity. Another teacher would be like, why aren't you eating any cookies? My thought would be, well, because I'm not a cookie-eating teacher. That's not the kind of guy I am. You are. Look at you. Yeah, that's why you look like that. I look like this because I believe this is who I am. My philosophies about life, my identity, are why I am where I am and why you are where you are. Why would I want to be where you are? So my identity was concrete, that I was disciplined, ripped, could do hard things. I remember my roommate that I lived with, and I was about, 21, 22 years old. He won a year's supply of chocolate from this local craft premium candy store. So in our house, we had a year's worth of chocolate. That entire year, I had maybe 1 or 2 pieces the entire year, and only if they fit my nutrition plan. Like I had a little bit more carbs left at the end of the day. If I wasn't disciplined, I probably would have gained 50 pounds that year. So I thought anything was possible for me. I thought I could do really hard things. My identity was in stone. Then I got married. Then I had kids, went on a honeymoon, started drinking more often, started eating all the time. After 1 year passed, I was probably 30, 40 pounds heavier. And then it was 10 years of going up and down in weight. I remember in the midst of that, being depressed and sad and looking back at pictures of myself when I was shredded, thinking, you can't do that anymore. I would look back at pictures of myself and say, you've changed. Because I would fantasize about getting back up in the morning early and working out before school. The alarm would go off, and I would be like, who the hell was that guy who set that alarm? You can't do that. And I'd go back to sleep. Maybe one day out of a month, I would actually wake up early and work out before work. But every other day, I would succumb to comfort, convince myself in the moment that I should fall back asleep, wake up with regret, be pissed at myself during the day. My wife could sense the frustration, so it affected her. My inner frustration affected her. And then when the moments came when I was disciplined and lost weight, of course, I had more energy, I was happier, I was more confident, and those were the best of times. And then I would get complacent. I would hit that threshold. This is where the governor kicks in. I would hit that limit, and then once again, I would start to sabotage myself again. That's what the governor is in my health. I would say get to 230 pounds or 240, or just stop checking the scale. I get disgusted with myself. And then once I reached a certain level of disgust, that was like my governor on the bad end. We've got a governor on the high end and a governor on the bad end. The governor on the bad end is, well, you've sank so low, now we're going to reverse course. So once I would sink to that limit, it would kickstart me. I'd get motivated. I'd get inspired. I'd be surviving. And I would work really, really hard to get back to the high limit, which was maybe, I don't know, 210 pounds or 215. And I would reach that number, and my internal governor would kick in and be like, well, you're not going any faster than this. This is the kind of guy you are. And then once again, I would sink down. I'd put on more weight, slowly and steadily, and then a couple months would pass, and I'd be back to 240, 250, who knows? And then once again, my low-end governor would kick in, and it would make me inspired to work out again, and then I'd make progress, and then I'd cut myself a break. Always when I hit that like 215, 210 pound mark, I'd be like, well, you're doing pretty good. You feel okay. You feel okay, so that means things are okay. And then I would start to, give myself a break one weekend, put on a couple pounds, kind of track what I was eating that week, put on another couple pounds, and then find myself back at the beginning. Always busting into that governor. Always hitting that threshold and going back down. And that lasted 10 years. That's how the governor showed up in my health. In my business, it happened the same thing. I started to create an ad agency. I paid for a business coach. She taught me how to make an ad agency. I was moderately successful at that, enough so to quit my job. And it right before COVID hit is whenever I was finally making enough money to quit my job. And since I was working with real estate agents, COVID shut down all of my clients for a year, so we went to zero. But what would happen during this time is, for me to get clients, it's constant prospecting. Like I have to be reaching out to people on LinkedIn, on Instagram, with the running ads, making cold calls, sales calls. There's a lot of work that goes into getting clients in any type of business. So for me, on the very beginning stages and starting out, it's all me. I'm doing all of it. Sarah helped out here and there, but she has a full-time job. She was a mom. She was taking care of the house, doing things. So basically the entire business was me. And I was also working a full-time job, so I was doing this in the mornings, in the afternoons, during my breaks, in the evening. I was taking sales calls in the back of the band room and during my prep periods and finding storage closets, running around, and I got really good at it. So I would make progress. I would say, in a month as a teacher at that time, my monthly take-home pay was probably $3,000. So, which I know, not a lot, but that's what it is. $4,000. And then I would sign a couple people, maybe double my monthly teacher income. So I'd make $8,000, which for me was just blowing my brains. That I was making that. I thought, what I thought was that much money. How can I possibly make that much money? And because I got to a certain level, and I was like, okay, I had a good month. I made $10,000 this month. Then I would not do the things anymore. I wouldn't reach out to as many people. I wouldn't call as many people. I wouldn't send as many messages. I wouldn't do as many sales calls. Because in my mind, it was like, well, you did it. You hit your goal. So that was my threshold. That was the state where the governor kicked in and took me back down. And then I would have a bad couple months. Then I would get scared and I would start working really hard. Then I would have a good month. And then I'd put on the brakes and say, you deserve to take a break. And then I would find myself back at like $1,000 and I'd be scrambling again. That's how the governor affected my business. Can also affect your marriage and parenting. I mean, there were times in our relationship where me and Sarah were not very passionate, and we went months without having sex. There was a phase of our life where that happened. So our governor was like, well, okay, well, this is just the way we are. And then we'd get to a point where I'd be like, okay, something needs to change. You'd work hard at it, and then you'd make some progress, and then you'd sabotage yourself again. I've seen some governors in people kick in when you just can't really have a good time. Like there's some dads, and I think even I was in a phase of my life where if things were okay, if there was no problem, if there was no struggle, you couldn't handle it. Like I couldn't handle it. And I remember feeling like that. Like I had to be stressed to make to be in my emotional safe place. I think Tony Robbins talks about everyone has an emotional home where they feel safe and comfortable. And for me, my emotional home was in a survival state. I felt okay and comfortable surviving, like scraping like a roach you're just trying to kill, but you just can't kill it. Like that was me. Like can't be killed. And then as soon as I started to thrive, I would sabotage myself because I couldn't handle that. I couldn't handle the success. So I'd sabotage myself and then go back down to surviving. I was always in that survival mode. I was great at surviving, horrible at thriving. Great at surviving, horrible at thriving. There's many reasons behind that. Scary to be thriving. Scary for that attention. The success is scary. You're like, well, what if I lose this all? I'm not used to that. I don't have any experience thriving, but I have a ton of experience surviving. I know what it's like to hit rock bottom and go back up. So if I stay there, nothing expected will happen, and I can predict the future, then there's no fear of the unknown. And that internal dialogue, an emotional roller coaster, keeps you never really exceeding what your governor allows. It's excuse making, it's lying to yourself. And it all comes down to identity. That's why in our Men of Fire program, it's focused on identity. That's why I just finished my Ignite 30 program is about to launch, and I had some beta testers take it. Like just 4 random people who follow me on Instagram reached out to me. I put a post out there. I said, I'm going to start this thing, but I want some people to go through it for free. But in exchange, you need to tell me what's working, what's not working, and give me feedback, give me a testimonial, give me some before and after pictures, and I'll let you go through it for free. When it launches, it's going to be $97, $197, something like that. So, unbelievably affordable for what you get. And I had these 4 people go through for free, 30-day program. One guy lost 18 pounds. Another guy lost 10 pounds. They said their marriages were improved. They said they're more present. They said throughout the day they're thinking about being a better person. They said in their personal life they had breakthroughs from a 30-day self-paced program that I created. I'm creating for about 8 months now. Why? Because it focuses on identity. It's my process for breaking through as a man. It's my process of being a selfless leader in your home by replacing your habits, bad habits for good habits, by creating systems in your life to optimize, and by shifting your perspective, by constantly working on mindset. By doing those things, you can be a selfless leader of your house who brings joy. I was just blown away. They like 4 random beta testers just made this unbelievable progress. The only way I made progress in my personal life in these areas is when my identity changed. When I was able to open the seat and rip out that internal governor. Because I always sank back to the person I believed I was. Like I saw myself in the business times as a $10,000 a month guy. And I remember the month right before COVID, I hit 15K. And I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And it just blew my mind because I didn't think of myself as that kind of person, that I could do that. Your threshold might be 100K a month, where you say, okay, I'm a 100K a month kind of guy. Or maybe, whenever I was a teacher making $30,000, $40,000 a year, I had to invest in myself, hire a coach that my brain could then be busted wide open and my internal governor could be ripped out. And I could say, no, you can make more than your 9 to 5. Because for us, we had a pay scale that I knew the day I took the job. The day I took the job, I knew what I would make 35 years later if I retired as a teacher. So that was my governor, that scale that I could read. In my head, I would only make as much as that. And if you're in another job, you know from the guys that are retiring and the people around you how much you make. Like, what's possible for you. And in my little education world, I knew what was possible for me. Like if I stick with a teacher, I can make this much money. If I say become a principal, if I'm a superintendent someday, I can make this much. So your world is limited by your environment. And as soon as I started joining business groups and joining men's programs and surrounding myself with uber successful people who didn't have the same cage that I did, my governor got ripped out. I said, no, you can just start a business and start making more money. Whenever you're surrounded by 9 to 5 people who have, normal jobs, who don't have ambition to do that, you don't think it's possible. But as soon as I started surrounding myself with people who were like taking risks all the time, investing all the time, like, yeah, money comes and goes. It's going to come back to you, but you got to spend some. It's like, okay. And I started investing in coaches and programs and ads in my business. All of a sudden I was making more money. I was like, okay, now I'm not just a $4,000 a month 9 to 5 guy. Now I'm a $10,000 a month side business guy. And then continually my identity changed. That governor kept on bumping up, bumping up, bumping up. I made massive progress in my health, in my business, in my relationships, once my identity changed and that governor stopped ruling every aspect of my life. I said, no more. No more are you going to tell me what I can and can't do. Whenever you finish that sentence of, I'm the kind of guy that tells you what your governor is. There's a guy in my group who's 47 in amazing shape. 44. In amazing shape. Anyone would look at him who's out of shape and be like, I would give anything to look like this guy. He's having an internal battle because he doesn't know if he wants to be in single-digit body fat and be crazy shredded and have like ab veins, or stick where he is. And he's kind of hit a little plateau, not from a lack of systems or knowledge or ability, but because he hasn't decided whether he's all in on that or not. And I told him, I said, it doesn't matter to me. You have great healthy habits. You're disciplined and consistent. If you want to reach that level, you can. I can take you there. I've done it to myself. I've done it to all these other guys in the program. It's not necessary, but if you want to go to that like crazy shredded look, it's possible and I can help you. But you're going to have to suffer like you've never suffered before. You're going to have to go weeks where you don't miss a single day. So you're right now, let's say he's at 13% body fat, which is great, which is nothing wrong with that at all. It means he looks really, really good. And he's, in the top 5% of guys. So I said, you can stay there, but if you want to push yourself to hit single digits, like a personal milestone, and to develop the discipline it takes to get there, I will help you, but you're going to have to suffer longer than you have before, which means you're going to have to be more consistent than you ever have before, more disciplined than you ever had before. You're going to have to say no to more things than you've ever said no to. Like there's little times when you're mostly tracking and you're mostly disciplined and you're mostly eating healthy. You're going to have to go from mostly eating healthy to always eating healthy. Since I'm in this space and the gym I go to is full of professional bodybuilders in Pittsburgh, I talk to all of them about their routines, and I've done it myself and I've helped other guys do it. If you want to get to that like stage level, like there's a guy, one of my best friends, I saw him on stage. He was like 4 or 5% body fat when he was on stage. He had veins in his ass cheeks. Like crazy, crazy, crazy. I mean, he went months of just hours of cardio, eating chicken and a little bit of rice and lots of greens every single day, like months of suffering and consistency and discipline. And he didn't have to. Like he was already in really good shape. He's a successful business owner, making fine money, good relationships in his family. But for him, he wanted to test himself. He wanted to see if he could do it. And for a lot of guys, getting your body to a place where you can look back on and say, that's me, and just testing yourself fills you with fire. Because whenever you allow yourself to slink and get complacent, that fire dies on the inside, and you just feel miserable and you get depressed. So for him, he was like, I need to challenge myself right now. I want to see if I can push myself. I want to see what I'm made of. I want to see if I have what it takes to deprive myself for that long. So that's my conversation with this guy. It was, you don't have to, but if you want to take on this personal challenge, I'll support you in it. But I'm telling you, I can show you the pitfalls ahead because I've done it and I've helped other guys do it. One of those pitfalls are, say you're great with your nutrition 6 out of 7 days, it's going to have to be 7 out of 7 days. Like you follow your nutrition plan for 20 days, and on the 21st day, it's your daughter's birthday, you can't have a piece of cake. You're going to have to say, for this phase of my life, for what I want to try to do right now, I'm going to do things differently. Your governor, what you're used to butting up against, is going to have to change. And that was my talk with him. I said, this internal governor that you have that's keeping you here, that's why in his mind he was plateaued. He's like, he kept on saying he wanted to get lower, but his actions weren't showing it. He hadn't made up his mind whether he actually wanted to do that or not. So he was just kind of sticking around the same weight for about a month. And like I said, he's like 11, 12, 13% body fat, something where he's already has abs, but he's deciding in his head whether he wants to go all the way. So his internal governor was keeping him there. And he decided that, yes, okay, I'm going to go all the way. So I accept the challenges and I accept the suffering it's going to take to get there. And I say suffering, meaning like physical discomfort. But I promise you, on the way there, it's a beautiful thing. You will find yourself feeling on fire. You'll find yourself smiling with tons of energy. You'll find yourself in a really good place whenever you're in a, quote, suffering state. I also said, there's some people in the world who are suffering and they don't have a choice. They're on 0 carbs and 0 calories a day because they can't find food. We have it so damn good in this country, and in places of the world where there's abundance that we have to intentionally decide to suffer. We have the luxury of deciding to deprive ourselves when other people don't have that luxury. They have no choice but to deprive themselves. For us, it's a hard thing to get ourselves to deprive ourselves. For other people, it's hard to even get anything. They're in a natural state of being deprived. That's an example of perspective shift, of how to look at what you're doing to motivate you to keep on going. So I helped him take that governor out of himself so he can reach his potential physically. But many of us need to release the governors and rip them out of our bodies in various areas of our life. With your income, with your marriage, with your health, who you believe you are. It always comes back to identity. I call it identity hacking. It is how I have made any meaningful change in my life. It is by changing your identity. You can't make a goal and not shift your identity along with it. Because if your goal doesn't align with the person you believe you are, you're not going to hit it. You have to believe you're that kind of person. When I went that decade of going up and down in my health, and then therefore my business, I didn't believe that better things were possible for me because I was always living up to the person I thought I was. In the back of my head, I always said, you don't have it anymore. You used to be disciplined. You used to be consistent. You don't have it anymore. But now I believe I have it. Now down to my soul, I know that the best times are ahead of me. And because of that, I can do anything I want. That is my identity, and that's what I have to work on every single day, is saying, where are the governors in my life? And that's the exercise we did on the call. I said, everyone, I want you to decide where in your life is the governor. Is it in your marriage, business, health, parenting? Where is it that you have a governor holding you back right now? I want you to identify it, and I want you to attack it, and then create a plan for destroying it and rising above it. So if you're listening, think about that. Think about where in your life do you have a governor? You work really hard, you hit that threshold, and you find yourself back at square one. Because deep down, you believe you're the kind of guy who only achieves a certain thing. And then you keep on bouncing back down because of that governor. Try today to identify it and then make a plan to attack it.